Beijing has pushed back firmly against Tokyo, rejecting a diplomatic protest over gas field development in the contested waters of the East China Sea. The issue, simmering for decades between Asia's two largest economies, flared again after Japan accused China of expanding drilling activity in areas where the two nations' exclusive economic zone claims overlap. Japan's foreign ministry confirmed earlier this week that it had spotted new Chinese drilling rigs rising in the East China Sea, a zone rich in natural resources but long plagued by rival territorial assertions. In response, Tokyo submitted a formal complaint to the Chinese embassy, calling Beijing's actions provocative and inconsistent with past agreements aimed at managing tensions. But Beijing has dismissed these concerns outright. At a regular press briefing in the Chinese capital, Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiakun made clear that his government would not yield to Japanese protests. Guo, standing before a packed room of journalists, entered the podium with a calm but firm demeanour. The tension in the room was evident as reporters leaned forward to capture Beijing's official line on an issue that once again threatens to inflame regional stability. Guo addressed the matter directly, stating China's oil and gas development activities in the East China Sea are located in the undisputed waters under China's jurisdiction, which is entirely within China's sovereign rights and jurisdiction. China does not accept Japan's groundless accusations and has rejected Japan's so-called protest. His words were unequivocal. Beijing considers its operations in the East China Sea as a matter of sovereignty, not subject to negotiation or compromise with Tokyo. The clash over gas fields in these disputed waters is not new. Since the early 2000s, both China and Japan have sparred over exploration rights in the East China Sea, particularly near the Chunqiao gas field, known in Japan as Shirakaba. The two countries had once reached a fragile understanding in 2008 to pursue joint development in some contested zones, but that deal quickly stalled amid worsening political ties and nationalistic pressures on both sides. For Tokyo, the stakes are both economic and strategic. Japan relies heavily on imported energy resources, and securing stable access to offshore gas reserves has long been part of its national interest. At the same time, Tokyo views Beijing's unilateral development as an erosion of agreed frameworks and as a symbol of China's growing assertiveness in regional maritime disputes. The Japanese government has repeatedly accused China of installing new drilling platforms on the Chinese side of the median line, a boundary that Japan unilaterally claims should separate their exclusive economic zones. Beijing, however, has never recognized that line, insisting instead that the continental shelf extending from its coast gives it broader maritime rights. This fundamental disagreement has left the two countries locked in a cycle of protest and rejection, with no permanent solution in sight. Diplomats in Tokyo were quick to voice frustration after Guo's comments. A senior Japanese foreign ministry official, speaking on condition of anonymity, described China's actions as deeply concerning and warned that such moves undermine regional trust. But so far, Japan's options remain limited to diplomatic protests and appeals to international norms. For China, the rejection of Japan's protest is part of a broader strategy to assert sovereignty over its maritime claims, whether in the East China Sea or further south in the contested waters of the South China Sea. Analysts say Beijing sees little incentive to compromise, given its energy needs, domestic nationalism, and growing military power to enforce its stance. Still, the timing of the latest dispute is notable. Regional tensions are already high, with military drills, territorial disputes, and geopolitical rivalries playing out across East Asia. The US, a key ally of Japan, has repeatedly emphasized its commitment to defending Tokyo under the terms of the US-Japan Security Treaty, including in scenarios involving the disputed East China Sea. Washington has also criticized Beijing's unilateral actions, though it has stopped short of direct involvement in the gas field dispute itself. US officials stress the importance of dialogue and adherence to international law, urging both parties to avoid escalation. Yet for many observers, the pattern has become familiar. Japan lodges protests, China rejects them, and the cycle repeats. What is changing, however, is the pace and visibility of Beijing's drilling efforts. Satellite images and reports from Japanese patrols increasingly confirm new Chinese infrastructure in contested waters, reinforcing the impression that China is cementing facts on the ground, or, in this case, at sea. Back in Beijing, Guo Jiakun's firm rejection highlighted the official posture. There was no hint of compromise in his words, no indication that China would reconsider its actions or engage in fresh negotiations. Instead, Beijing's message was one of sovereign entitlement. Guo's statement serves as both a signal to Japan and to domestic audiences in China, where defending territorial integrity is framed as a core national interest. By categorically rejecting Tokyo's complaint, Beijing seeks to project strength and determination. As the press conference wrapped up, reporters attempted to press Guo on whether China would agree to renewed talks on joint development or dispute management. He offered no new openings, repeating that the activities were entirely within China's rights and therefore not subject to protest. For now, the dispute appears set to continue its familiar course: diplomatic protests from Tokyo, firm rejections from Beijing, and rising unease in a region where contested waters hold not just energy resources, but symbolic weight in the larger struggle for influence in Asia. The East China Sea, calm on its surface, remains turbulent beneath, a maritime flashpoint where words may be sharp, but actions carry far deeper consequences.